Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Friday, May 8th meeting via Communications Technology Media of the Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization Technical and Citizens Advisory Committee meetings. So I call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to start with Sarah this morning to do a little housekeeping and to provide some assistance to those of you who are meeting virtually.
Good morning, this is Sarah Crom with the Space Coast TPO. I wanted to provide you with some information regarding the two formats that we'll be using today. The first is the GoToWebinar. You should be logged in now. In order to join via the audio, you will either have to choose to use mic and speakers on your computer, or you can also choose to dial in with your telephone, whatever is most comfortable for you. Please keep yourself muted to minimize background noise. There are 52 people logged in, and if we all were unmuted, then it would be quite loud. Also, please utilize the question and comment boxes in the control panel. This will help minimize people talking over each other, as well as also we'll be able to recognize you that way. If you wish to verbally speak, please raise your hand. Use the raise hand function that you can see on your control panel. The hand raising function will also be used to make motions. I'd also like to point out that there is a handout section in your control panel. This has the agenda package, as well as also handouts from FDOT regarding the Florida Transportation Plan. We will be utilizing Mentimeter in order to vote today. If you are unable to access Menti, please use the comment box, not the question box, or rather the chat box, excuse me, not the question box within the GoToMeeting format. To log into Menti, please go to menti.com and enter the code 956900. Please note that during item 8A, the Florida Transportation Plan update, they will be utilizing a different surveying tool. So please open a different browser or use the text option for that. So, and with that, I will hand it over to Georgiana.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. I pray that everyone is safe and healthy. So please bear with us as we navigate our first virtual committee meeting. We have authority to hold a virtual meeting pursuant to Executive Order number 20-69 issued by the Office of Governor Ron DeSantis on March 20th, 2020. The Space Coast TPO may conduct meetings of its governing board and its committees without having a quorum of its members present physically or at any specific location, and utilizing communications media technologies such as telephonic or video conferencing. Procedures for the public comment will be explained shortly. The members of the Technical and Citizens Advisory Committees will be appearing at today's meeting remotely. So now I'd like to provide some procedures on how the public can participate. Any member may be heard by the TAC and CAC through the chair upon registering pursuant to the published notice on any proposition before the committees. Since this is a virtual meeting as authorized by the governor of the state of Florida, members of the public wishing to address the body may do so by visiting www.spacecoasttpo.com to attend the virtual meeting. With regard to access to the meeting, the agency is using GoToWebinar. This is a cloud-based platform for video and audio conferencing, collaboration, and chat across mobile devices, desktops, and telephones. In order to ensure that the public has the ability to view the meeting, the Space Coast TPO is streaming the meeting live via its YouTube channel. With regard to public comment, the Space Coast TPO has developed several methods of ensuring public comment for this virtual meeting. One, those wishing to provide comments during the meeting may either register and attend virtually or may attend in person. Participants must register if wishing to attend virtually. You may raise your hand or enter your request to speak via the GoToWebinar chat question box, either during public comment or at time agenda item is discussed. Once recognized by the chair, your microphone will be unmuted and you will be given 3 minutes for comment. Communications media technology shall be made available to participate and provide public comment at the following physical location: the Vieira Government Center, Building B, 2725 Judge Fran Jameson Way, Melbourne, Florida. In-person access may be limited to comply with CDC distancing recommendations. When addressing the TACCAC, a member of the public must first state his or her name, his or her address, and what item will be spoken about. The public was given an opportunity to provide advanced written and verbal comments via email, the United States Postal Service, or through the main phone line at 321-690-6890. At this time, we have not received any advanced written comments prior to the meeting. Third, verbal and written comments will also be accepted after the meeting by emailing lisa.hickman, Hickman, at brevardfl.gov, or calling our office at 321-690-6890. Written comments will be accepted no later than 3 business days after the virtual meeting. All written comments will be included as part of the official public record of the meeting. You will need to give your name, address, agenda item you are speaking to, and comments. We ask everyone to please silence all cell phones and noise-making devices. The TPO rules of procedure, decorum, and policy governing the public comment period shall be followed and enforced in the same manner as if the meeting were held in person. So at this time, I'd like to turn it back over to our chair, Mr. Morgan.
Thank you. And now, in accordance with our Executive Director's Emergency Order 2015, I would have Laura Carter call the roll, whether people here in person at the County Government Center or elsewhere.
Thank you, Chair. I will be starting with the Technical Advisory Committee first. What I will be doing is calling off the names that we have noted by you signing in, or originally when you first logged into the webinar, putting your name in. At the end of the TAC, I will ask if I will have missed anyone. At that time, if I have, I would ask that you enter your name into the chat box. So I will go through the Technical Advisory Committee first. From Brevard County Planning and Zoning, I have Jeffrey Ball. Brevard County Public Works, Devin Swanson. Canaveral Port Authority, Veronica Narvez Lugo. And I do apologize if I do not pronounce your name right. From the City of Cocoa, Abigail Morgan. City of Cocoa Beach, Jared Francis. City of Melbourne, Jenny Lamb. City of Palm Bay, Frank Watanabe. City of Rockledge, Michael Jerusowitz. City of Satellite Beach, Liz Allward. City of Titusville, Quibana Ofoso, sorry. City of West Melbourne, Scott Morgan. Melbourne Airport Authority, Cliff Graham. Space Florida, Steve Zabo. From Town of Malabar, Matthew Stennett. That is 14 Technical Advisory Committee members. Is there anyone that I missed? We will give you about a few seconds to enter your name if I missed you. This is for the Technical Advisory Committee only. I do see those entering. You are CAC members. Hold on just a minute. I have 14 from the Technical Advisory Committee. That does satisfy quorum. I will now move on to the Citizens Advisory Committee. From Brevard County District 1, Adam Kohler. Brevard County District 2, Bill Ballmer and Tony Sasso. From Brevard County District 4, Michelle Belzonto and Peter Fuscus. City of Melbourne, Daniel Spradlin. City of Palm Bay, Philip Weinberg and James Boothroyd. City of Rockledge, Liz Lark Riley. City of Titusville, David Carter. City of West Melbourne, Gil Ramirez. North Beaches Coalition, Orson Tarver and Arlen DeBlau. South Beaches Coalition, Rochelle Lawanda. There are 14 current Citizen Advisory Committee members. Those who have both the member and the alternate, when we get to voting, I ask that only the member vote. And hold on just a minute. 1, 2, 6. We do have 13 members of the Citizens Advisory Committee that are eligible for voting at the moment. If I missed anybody from the Citizens Advisory Committee, please enter your name into the chat box at this time. I don't see anybody else entering their name at this time, but the Citizens Advisory Committee does have 13 voting members in attendance and meets quorum.
All right, thank you. So now we'll turn it back over to Georgiana to seek ratification of her Executive Order 2015 that allows for this meeting to be conducted via communications media technology.
All right.
Georgiana?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following direction from legal counsel, Emergency Order 20-15 was issued on April 23rd, 2020. This emergency order provides rules for conducting virtual meetings to be in compliance with Florida statute. So this is pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order 20-69. So we are asking for approval, ratification of the Executive Director's Emergency Order 20-15.
All right, so raise your hand for a motion and a second. So that's the process we've decided. So we're looking for a motion from a member of the TAC to confirm our Executive Director's Emergency Order 2015 to allow us to conduct the meeting the way that we are.
From the Technical Committee, I have Jenny Lamb and Cliff Graham.
Thank you. Over to the CAC.
And from the CAC, we need a motion to approve the Executive Director's Emergency Order. Please raise your hand.
I have David Carter and Daniel Spalding.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any questions or discussion?
Roll call then.
Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
We need to
Hold
do a
on.
roll call, I believe.
We will be doing the voting, so there is a documentation using the menti.com. If you would enter, we're getting it set up here, hold on. If you enter your code at menti.com 956900, and this is for approval only for CAC members. We need your name, please, first and last name. If you do not have access to menti.com, please enter your name into the chat box.
It's for those who are voting in favor of the motion.
When entering into Menti, from now on, please put your first and last name. And we're doing CAC members only at this time.
These are mixed.
Yeah. We have David Carter and Peter Fuscus answering the last one questions.
They were raising their hand.
Can you call on and unmute those that haven't voted?
Yes. So we picked them.
There are a number of people have put their name in.
Yeah. There is a slight delay. Why is it? I do not see. All right, let's go to roll call. I'm going to be unmuting you individually and finding out whether your preference is to approve or oppose. Mr. Vollmer, can you please unmute and let me know your vote? You're self-muted. Mr. Vollmer from D2, are you able to unmute? All right, I'll move on. Sorry about this. Can I call names in?
Yeah. Mhm.
Unmuted. Tony Sasso.
Unmuted.
Mr. Sasso?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I voted aye. I tried to do it through Menti, but I
I
see
saw-
you answered me. So I guess it worked. So yes, aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle. I have Mr. Fuskus as an approval.
Michelle. Where'd she go? Come here. Okay. Michelle Alzonto.
Good morning. Approved.
Daniel Spradling.
He muted himself.
Oh, I see him on the, okay,
Okay.
got him.
Yep.
Phil
Feinberg.
Aye.
James Boothroyd.
James Boothroyd, you are self-muted. Could you please unmute and let us know if you approve or oppose?
Liz Lark Riley, you're unmuted. Are you in approval or opposition? Liz? Can you hear us?
We just have one more. Right?
Everybody else has voted.
Okay, all right. All right, we will move to the, oh, sorry. That's not my job.
All right, so thank you, members of the CAC, for your votes. And so now we're ready for the TAC. And now that the CAC members have shown us how it's to be done, we're expecting the TAC. If you are in favor, to put your name in menti.com and tell us you're in favor of this motion.
If you are unable to use Menti, you can use the chat box.
Scott Morgan.
Aye. Liz Allward, satellite.
Is all word put in the question.
Okay.
Box.
We're missing Liz.
Liz is in the question box. Yeah, so I have Liz.
Jenny Leon.
Jenny is in Menti.
Devon's in.
Yep.
I'm missing Jared Francis.
Jenny Francis is in.
Abigail Morgan. I saw her.
Yeah, Abigail.
And
There's some members of the TAC who can't make a look for a fish.
No, just saw how it was done.
Well, we'll look at both, I think.
Right, we are just missing one vote, and so Jeffrey Ball, I'm going to unmute you. If you could please let us know if you are opposed or full in favor. Hi, Jeffrey, you are unmuted.
Hi, Sarah. This is Cheryl Campbell in for Jeffrey Ball.
Okay.
And I vote yay. A.
Thank you, Cheryl.
that's all of them.
All right, so thank you. We have a unanimous TAC vote on that ratification of the Executive Director's Emergency Order 2015. That moves us to item 4, public comment. So our Executive Director has explained the variety of ways that the public can communicate, and that includes items that are not on the agenda but of interest to the public within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Space Coast TPO. And so at this time, if there are members of the public, by whatever means you would like to provide a public comment, please do so at this time.
And I have communication with Carol on our staff, who is in the public meeting area, and there's no one there at this time.
We have no public.
We have no public comment. Thank you very much. That takes us to item 5, which is the Executive Director's report. Georgiana.
All right, thank you. In your agenda package, you have several standing reports that we provide for you every month for your information. I just want to highlight those, that they are in your package. I wanted to let you know that the Central Florida Expressway Authority has kicked off the Osceola-Brevard County Connector Corridor Study. The purpose of the study is to evaluate the feasibility of a future expressway connection from Osceola County to I-95 and Brevard County. The study will look at options from an engineering and environment standpoint. This is very high-level planning beyond the 2045 timeframe, but it's to help improve evacuation routes and promote regional connectivity. The web address for the study is listed on the flyer, and as the study moves through the process, you will be hearing more about that, and Brevard County stakeholders are very much involved in this study. Next, I wanted to let you know the Transplex Planning Innovation of the Year was awarded to the Space Coast TPO's 2019 Bicycle Pedestrian Master Plan. So congratulations to Ms. Sarah Crom, our project manager, along with our consulting team, Kittleson and Associates. You know, she was really up against some very steep competition as it tied with Broward County's NPO Complete Street Master Plan. But we got a lot of kudos on our bicycle pedestrian master plan. And so congratulations, Sarah, for all your hard work on that. The Space Coast chapter of the Florida Public Relations Association awarded our very own Abby Hemingway, our public involvement officer, the award of distinction and the judges award for the 2019 public participation plan. And so she worked very hard on that plan. And this really lets the public know how we're going to engage with them throughout our process. So I wanted to brag on Sarah and Abby for their excellent accomplishments for the Brevard County area. I also wanted to update everyone on the water quality analysis that the St. Johns River Water Management has been conducting over the past 2 or 3 months for the lagoon in relation to causeway removal. If you remember, we've had a lot of conversation about that in the past. So they finalized their analysis, but due to the pandemic, there has been a delay in meeting with the stakeholders to discuss the outcome. But a meeting has been arranged, or it's being arranged actually as we speak. And all of the stakeholders will be sitting down virtually to discuss the outcome of the analysis. So our plan is to have a presentation in July. You know, July is going to be a very big meeting for the TPO because we will be discussing our project priorities, our transportation improvement program, and now we're also going to be talking about the outcome of this water quality analysis. So we're hopeful that we can perhaps meet in person, but we're just going to have to wait and see. With discussing all of these important topics, meeting in person is always great, but we'll just have to see. So I wanted to give you a heads up about that. And that is it for me.
All right, so if there's questions, question box or raise your hand to be unmuted. Give you a second there, and if not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We're not seeing any hands raised. Okay, so we're going to turn it back over to Georgiana to introduce our consent agenda and how we're going to be acting on that today.
All right, I will read the consent agenda and you can consider adopting it in one motion unless you would like to pull any item for deeper discussion. A is approval of the TACCAC meeting minutes of March 9th, 2020. B is the adoption of resolution 20-14. That is our final fiscal year 21 through 22 Unified Planning Work Program. C is approval of the Florida Transportation Performance Measures Consensus Planning Document. This document outlines the minimum roles that the DOT, MPOs, and our public transportation providers will be doing to satisfy performance management. Normally, this document is just included in our transportation improvement program, but we are pulling it out and we will only have to adopt this particular document one time. D is approval of work order 20-11K. This is our state of the system scope of services. This is our congestion management program that we conduct every year to understand how our roadways here in Brevard County is performing. And then finally, E is approval of resolution 20-16, agreement with Florida East Coast Railway and Virgin Trains USA for a 2020 build grant. And I wanted to go into a little bit more detail on this grant. Our governing board at the last meeting gave us approval to begin work on the build grant with Florida East Coast Railroad. And the project is to add a second track just north of 528 after where Brightline will leave the corridor heading west to Orlando. And you can see here, this is a map of the location and it involves 5 grade crossings and is a little over 4 miles long. So this will help to remove a bottleneck on the rail corridor and minimize blocking of those highway grade crossings and allow the trains to pass one another without stopping. There is an agreement under development, and the purpose is to outline the roles and the responsibilities between the parties for reimbursement and payment of the grant. Florida East Coast Railway and Virgin Trains is submitting, putting forward a 50% match to the build grant. And they're going after fiscal year 17 and 18 old Tiger funds. This is federal funds. And the funds can be obligated by September of 2020. So, we think that this is a project that will not only benefit us locally, but clearly this is more of a regional project, and it improves multimodal transportation, between Florida's economic regions, ensuring on-time performance. So we think this is a good project, and the TPO and our area will not be putting forward any funding for it. This is going after a USDOT grant. So we are asking for approval of the consent agenda.
Right, so Georgiana has outlined the consent agenda items 6A through 6E. I guess if anybody wants to pull any of those items for separate discussion, you could probably use the question box
Or raise their hand.
or raise your hand. Seeing any in the question box or raising the hand for any consent items to be discussed separately? Going, gone. Okay, now we're looking for hand raised for a motion and a second from the TAC for approving the consent calendar as presented. Hand raised for TAC member for wanting to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Gil Ramirez. Jeffrey Ball.
Over to the CAC.
And from the CAC, please raise your hand for a motion and a second.
Rochelle and Peter.
Was first. Rochelle Lawandez, followed by Peter Buskus.
And we have a motion and a second. If there's any discussion, please open your mic.
Or
They need to raise their hand.
they need to raise their
Or
hand.
raise your hand if you have
Utilize
a
the,
comment or a question. Seeing none, all in favor, respond on menti.com with your name and your vote.
You may also enter your name in the questions box if you are unable to use the menti.com.
oh, hold on one second. Let me get up to
One
the right
slide
Menti
apart.
screen. There we go. Please, if you are using Menti, put your first and last name. Oh, I see two hand raises. Peter Fuskus and Bill Bernhardt have raised their hand.
Can you unmute those that have raised their hand while you're doing this? You could do that simultaneously.
The three that have raised their hands. Hi, Peter. I see that, Mr. Fuskus, I see that you've raised your hand. Would you like to speak or cast your vote verbally?
I vote in the affirmative.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
I can't unmute Rochelle because of the way she's called in.
Philip.
Mr. Volmer, I see that you've raised your hand. Are you wishing to speak or cast your vote verbally? You will need to unmute yourself. You have self-muted.
I vote yes.
Thank you. Tony and David Porter.
I'm missing Michelle. Adam Colver. James Boothroyd. And Liz Riley. I'm missing.
Liz Liz, if you could use the, Liz Lark Riley, if you could use the question box again like you had previously done. We got Michelle, who was on phone. So who else? Who are we missing?
I am missing James Boothorn. I'm the only one I'm missing, other than Liz. And Liz. I'm still missing Liz and James.
James Woodrow.
Okay, so Jane.
He voted on Mickey.
Got it. So we're just missing Liz. Is the only one left.
Oh, and Liz just came in on questions. All right, very good.
Everybody has voted in.
All right. So over to the TAC, go ahead and vote on menti.com. Your name first and last, and your vote, yes or no.
Scott Morgan.
Yes.
That's gonna,
And Francis.
I see Jared Francis and Betty.
That's Dennis.
And I'm only missing Cheryl Campbell, which we might be.
And I see Cheryl Campbell.
That is Liz Oliver. Oh, she's there. That is everyone.
All right. Thank you very much. That takes us to item 7A, which is 2019 FDOT certification of the Space Coast TPO.
Oh, yeah, let me unmute Anna real quick. I'm trying to find her, I apologize.
No, she's not on your staff.
Hold on, Anna.
Oh, Vicky. Is it Vicky? She's saying she didn't sign in. There she is. I found her. Vicky, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's Anna. Sorry, I didn't sign in and I am using Vicky's login. But it's Anna filling in for Jamie. I just wanted to note that we did complete the certification this year with 100% with the TPO. We appreciate the partnership and staff's efforts in getting those invoices in on time. I did want to note some of the things that Georgiana had mentioned earlier, the dedication to adopting Vision Zero and the bike ped master plan. We really appreciate the partnership and the issues that we've overcome together this year. So we just want to say thank you to staff and to the board and hope that we have a great year next year too.
Thank you, Anna.
All right, thank you. I know the TPO staff here works really hard together with the Florida Department of Transportation to meet all of the numerous federal requirements, and we are so appreciative of our team here. So we'd be happy if somebody has a question or a comment, if you can raise your hand. And if not, you see any hand raising from a TAC member? Okay, let's go ahead then and look for a hand raising motion from a TAC member to recommend to the board to accept the certification.
I see Liz
Liz Oliver.
Jenny Lynn. Go
All
eyes.
right, over to the CAC.
And from the CAC, raise your hand if you have a question.
I saw Rochelle for a second and Bill Waldo.
We have a motion and a second, apparently no questions. All in favor, please enter your first and last name and your vote on menti.com.
I don't believe it or sometime. Or if you are unable to use Menti, once again, you can use the chat or question box. That was supposed to be.
Mr. Weinberg? Yes. Just asking for your vote.
I have Tony Sasso and Peter Koskis in the question box. Michelle Alzonto, Michelle Embler, Michelle Wandels on Menti. Oh, I have David Carter in the question.
Approve. Let me see, names following. Michelle.
Oh, she's on. Great, who are we missing?
Bill Palmer.
Bill Ballmer, I have unmuted you. If you could please let us know if you approve or oppose. You either do so by raising your hand, putting in the question box, or unmuting yourself. Oh, there we go. Okay, now he's on. Sorry, now you're unmuted.
I vote affirmative.
Thank you.
That's everyone.
Right.
All right, and over to the TAC, we have a motion and a second to approve the item 7, the Space Coast TPO certification. So please vote now.
Frank Patoni, Cheryl Campbell, KB, Lynn Zoller, Michael, Albie Morgan, Matt Senna, Barry Johnson. Yes, Devin Swanson. I have not seen her. Yeah. Oh, Veronica, I just got Veronica.
Yes.
I did not see Joe Francis, but I can see Rob Strong. Yes.
Scott Morgan?
Yes.
Jared Francis is on. Yeah, okay. Everybody's good.
All right, thank you. So appreciate everybody's voting on Menti or through the box. And so now, just to keep you on your toes, we're going to go to FDOT in a presentation. And within that presentation, you're going to have another opportunity to register your views. So we'll turn that over on item 8A to the Florida Department of Transportation. Give us just a moment to switch over.
Well, good morning, everybody. Let me get my screens adjusted here very quickly, I hope. And there we go. Show my screen. How's my volume? Is this good?
Yes.
Can you hear me okay? Excellent. I want to thank everybody for this opportunity to talk about the update to the Florida Transportation Plan. There are, as Sarah noted, handouts available to you in the handout section of this webinar. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, well, didn't we already hear about this last year? Well, yes, you did. The first two campaigns on technology and resilience, but today the focus is on the last two. That is the statewide regional campaign and the regional and local campaigns, although you can still provide your thoughts or comments on the previous two. So my goal today is to inform you about the purpose of the Florida Transportation Plan and why it matters, highlight some key trends impacting transportation, but most importantly, encourage you to provide input to help shape the plan. And you will have that opportunity in about 5 slides. So the department prepares numerous statewide plans to provide input to the Florida Transportation Plan. The visual shows just a few of those plans, but to highlight 2 of them, the 2025 plan was adopted in 2005. It includes an emphasis on coordinating and supporting regional visions and collaboration needed to achieve those visions. The 2060 plan, which was adopted in 2010, brought a much more economic-centered approach to transportation policy, including alignment with the Florida Strategic Plan for Economic Development and the Florida Mobility and Trade Plan. The FTP provides the overall policy framework for the SIS and related modal system plans. The SIS provides a framework to link together the modal plans and integrates passenger and freight mobility, which cuts across most modal boundaries. Updates to the various modal plans are guided by and provided input to the updates of the SIS policy plan. Now, many of these plans have been recently or are being currently updated. As most of you may be aware, the Freight and Mobility Trade Plan was recently updated in February. As we develop the Florida Transportation Plan, we will draw upon the SIS and statewide modal planning for critical information, including key issue trends and needs assessments. The current Florida Transportation Plan has 3 elements: a vision element looking out 50 years, a policy element with a 25-year horizon to match up with the MPO long-range transportation plans, and an implementation element. The updated plan may also include a 4th element, the performance element. The goals from the last Florida Transportation Plan update are remaining largely intact. Refinements made to them, such as linking transportation choices to improvements in accessibility and equity, reflect input from our partners and the public. The goal areas shown here representative of the themes that have historically been highlighted in Florida transportation plans, and consider emerging trends and technologies that are impacting the transportation system. Objectives identified for these goals often overlap the goal areas. This update of the plan will consider objectives and strategies within the 4 cross-cutting topics to better align the objectives and strategies and provide a clear direction for implementation. Those cross-cutting topics are technology and resilience, state and interregional transportation, and regional and local needs. Potential areas to be covered under those 4 cross-cutting topics are shown in this slide. I'm not going to read this for you. But what I do want to point out that under resilience, that includes the economic and societal changes, as well as environmental changes. Emerging trends for the 4 cross-cutting topics have been identified for the Florida Transportation Plan update and have been documented in emerging trends handouts available on our website. Technology is offering new ways of traveling and changing the way we move freight, our behavior, and how we use, share, and manage data. It also relates to resilience, which especially in Central Florida, we need to be more fully integrating into our planning, project development, and other processes. Among some important questions to consider, what natural hazards impact our transportation system? What types of extreme weather can affect the mobility of our Floridians? How can our transportation system be resilient to evolving economic trends? And how can we understand how transportation infrastructure is vulnerable to hazards and threats? Trends relating to state and interregional transportation encompasses multiple modes and focuses on linking regions together into a single state and connecting Florida to markets around the nation and the world. Among the potential areas to cover under regional and local cross-cutting topics are the issues and interests of urbanized, non-urbanized, and rural areas of the state, congestion relief, land use and community planning, regional visions, environment, and our economic development. Here's your opportunity, as I stated, to participate in providing your thoughts, your ideas, and your concerns. You can link on either via the website, www.pollev.com/FTP 2045, or simply using the camera on your phone, scan the QR code. I'll give you a moment. I do hope everybody participates. If there's any problems, let me know. Okay, I'm going to the next slide, which provides you an opportunity of who you represent. I see some great participation. Thank you. I'll give you a moment to fill that out. Okay, that looks like it's pretty, a few more people. Thank you. Now we'll go into the questions. So some of you working ahead, that's great. What trend is the most important to or will have the biggest impact on Florida's transportation future? Give you some time to consider these. Technology is important, yes. So we had resilience, technology, funding revenue, cost of transportation, sustainability, demographic shifts, population growth, the evolving processes to meet our changing demands, new ways to travel, preservation of the environment, the economy, safety, and then the less need to travel. I have to admit, I am enjoying my teleworking. All right, this seems to have settled. So the next question coming up, oops, hang on here. Okay, in your opinion, what is the greatest challenge for Florida to overcome related to changing technology and our transportation system? So integrating the old and existing and the new and emerging technologies, that is going to be a very big challenge. Rapid rate of development, the planning and design challenges, our regulatory barriers, and data security and privacy. We've all heard so much about data breaches with the local governments. Okay, that looks like that may have settled. A couple people, more people chiming in. Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to move on. So what regional or local needs should be considered as we update the FTP? Okay. What regional or local needs should be considered as we update? Lowering travel times is good. Economic population forecast of areas, climate change, connectivity, dedicated funding. Great responses. Thank you. All right. All right, moving on. That seems to have settled. So what are some strategies to increase statewide mobility for people in freight in the next 5 to 10 years? Some of our strategies. I guess that's a tough one. The light rail. Rail and commuter options, yes. Some good responses. Education, that's probably one of our most important categories for any of these, is not only educating our elected officials, but our public. Multimodal. Yes. Zoning and land use change involvement. That's important. This has been very good. Thank you. So that was great. I want to appreciate how much I appreciate your input here. All input received is organized by the project team and presented to the diverse 30+ member steering committee guiding the plan update. More information is available on our website, and I'll provide that link here in a moment, including more information on the cross-cutting topics. There are multiple ways to get involved, ranging from completing the online survey to providing comments using the general feedback form. Also shown is the FTP update schedule for 2020, and it has been subject to change due to the COVID-19 impacts. This has also impacted our planning for the regional workshops that is currently on pause. The draft plan will have a 30-day public comment period, and publication is still anticipated to be scheduled for December. And that's it. That was quick. Thank you. This is a screenshot of the website for the Florida Transportation Plan. There is also the link to, that is the www.floridatransportationplan.com. That will take you to that website. And as noted, there is another survey there that you can take at your leisure. And there's a wealth of information and resource material on this site for you to access for yourself. I want to thank you again for this opportunity to present. I appreciate the Space Coast TPO for allowing me this time and opportunity, and most importantly, your participation. Thank you. You have any questions?
All right, if you have questions, raise your hand.
Mr. Sasso.
Who's unmuted?
Mr. Sasso, you've been unmuted.
Hi, yes, this is Tony. First of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Judy, thank you for that presentation. Just one thing that kind of jumped at me was pretty glaring, was even in your very first kind of circle diagram that had some of the key elements, there was nothing in there about bicycle pedestrian safety. And in the state of Florida, I think everybody knows that we've got some of the highest death and accident rates and some of the highest use of bicycle and pedestrian traffic. And there's nothing in there that I saw covering that. And I'm curious why not.
That is a very good question, and it most certainly should be covered. And I'm making notes here because I do report back to our central office with not only this survey, but with your questions and comments. And I will have made note that why isn't there an emphasis on the bike ped safety? And you're right, we are #1 in the nation. Not a place we really are proud to be.
Well, good. I appreciate you adding that in, and I apologize. I tried to get in on the survey, and unfortunately, I've been doing pretty good so far with the technology, but I couldn't get on by texting or emailing. So I'll try again later when we get off this meeting.
Well, thank you. As I said earlier, there is another survey on the Florida Transportation Plan website that you can definitely take, and you can definitely send your comments to me or to the Office of Policy Planning, and definitely will forward those on and incorporate them into this report.
And Judy, if I could, I'd like to ask that at our next meeting, could you come back and comment on where that went? What happened? If you had any success in including that or not?
I certainly will.
Thank you.
Other hands for any questions for Judy? Not seeing any. All right, Judy, we thank you very much for your presentation, and we look hearing back from you next time.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to switch back again, and Stephen's going to kick us off in a little bit with Travis, and we're going to hear about where we are in the long-range transportation planning update process.
And thank you, Mr. Morgan. And just a quick housekeeping thing. Thanks everyone for giving Judy their input through her collection platform. If you could get back over to however you were using Menti, whether it's on a computer or on your phone, get back to that browser tab, because at the end of our presentation, we will be asking you for some input. So thank you. And forgive me. No, that went backwards. Oh, there we go. All right, and so I'm here just to give you a quick update on our long-range transportation plan. Half's going to be me giving you some information, and then I'll hand it over to Travis. And so we're just going to go over some. You've all heard about all the stakeholder outreach that we did and public outreach, and so we are going to also let you know how our outreach went with the environmental group. Go over the process, what we're looking at, and how moving into cost feasible plan. I've been before you before, and we've discussed about all of our different needs and everything, and we're to the point in our long range plan to where we need to match the funding up with the projects, and so we want to make sure that we're heading in the right direction. And then Travis is going to talk about some of the scenarios and some of our funding. And then we'll go over our next steps. And so our environmental outreach meeting, I think it went up too. Nope, no, here we go. So our environmental outreach meeting, this was the first time we met with all of these different environmental stakeholders. We found in the past that we've been hearing more and more that the environment is a much bigger concern than it has been in the past to everyone as far as transportation planning is concerned. And so we're really trying to do a better job up front, even way out in our long range plan process to try to get all of these agencies involved. It was really good. We had a lot of new ideas and a lot of people that hadn't been in the same room together before. So we had some really good discussion. And so we really want to get this group together each year to coincide around the same time as our call for projects and project priorities development process, to really get them involved in the beginning of the process of a project. Because we heard out of this meeting with them is that there might be some resources that can be shared if if the utilities companies know that, you know, in 20 years we're going to be working on widening a road. Maybe they can try to align up some utility replacements or to try to do some enhanced environmental improvements around that project that wouldn't normally be considered in a transportation project. And so with all of the input that we've gotten, we've also received input from all of you all in our new project priorities development process that Sarah and Laura have worked very hard on. And so we thought it would make sense to use that as a baseline screening tool to screen our projects that were in our needs plan in order to move forward with the cost feasible development. And so there are some nuances and some things that will be considered outside of just a technical score. So we're definitely going to look at phase consideration. So if a project only needs construction or design and construction in the out years, then obviously those will move up to the top if they're already well underway. And then we'll also do a reality check at the end to see if things make sense, because if a project's way far beyond our current time horizon, even beyond 2045, it might not make sense to keep into the cost feasible plan right now. And so here are some of the things that we're considering as part of moving forward into cost feasible. And so does the project need state or federal funding in the future? So these are kind of some of the bigger projects, because we don't want to spend a lot of resources and time for the super small projects when they make it a lap project and everything, especially in the locals can get those done quicker. And then, has it been an identified need in the travel demand model? Was it in the prior LRTP? Is it identified in existing TPO or local agency plans? Is it anticipated to be needed in the next 20 years? And does it have local support or funding? Because we do not want to move forward with any projects or conceptual lines on maps if they're not supported at the local level. And so here I'm going to hand it over to Travis, and he's going to talk about the financial forecasting just real quickly, and to remind you all that we only have a limited amount of funding. And he will also be talking about some of the funding scenarios we're going to be working on.
Perfect. Thanks, Stephen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Awesome. So yeah, good morning, everybody. This is Travis Hills with Kittleson and Associates. I want to talk through the next few slides here. So the first one, financial forecasting. Some of these slides you may have seen at the previous technical committee meeting, TAC-CAC meeting that we had. I want to review this as we start talking through our cost feasible plan scenarios that we're developing. So just to remind everybody, working with about $3.4 billion in state and federal money. So that gets allocated to the Space Coast TPO through various sources. So those funding sources include the CIS. And as you'll see on the chart on the right, the CIS is a majority of that. So, or not a majority, but it's a good chunk. So it's about 1.6 billion of that 3.4. Other roadways and right-of-way, those are going to be funds allocated to our state roadways in Brevard County. We also have transit funds, and then TMA and TA funds that we can use as well on more of our local road projects. The other revenue source that we look at as well is the local revenue sources, and these are mainly impact fees and fuel taxes, both state and local option. Out of that pot, we're looking at about 1.5 billion in revenue that we can use in our financial forecasting. One thing that we do keep in mind, though, is about 800 million of that 1.5 billion has already been or is already going to be allocated for O&M. And so that's something that we keep in mind, is that It may look like a big number. It may look, oh man, we have 100 or 1.5 billion, but in reality, it's about $700 million worth of impact fees specifically that we're going to be looking to put on projects. And another thing that we look at is potential new revenue sources. And so everything on the previous slide, that's quote unquote real money, as real as you can get at this stage. And so that those are projections that we think are going to be coming in over the next 25 years. These are potential new revenue sources that currently aren't being levied. These are things that we could use if levied by the county to help support further project development. So a couple of those being the sales surtax and a local option fuel tax. And so from a sales surtax perspective, if we levied a half a cent or a full cent, we could get an additional $1.2 to $2.3 billion in funding for transportation projects. Looking at local option fuel taxes, a couple different sources. We could leverage another 1 to 5 cent option. It's currently not being levied today. That would get us an additional $215 million for projects. And then there's also the 9 cent fuel tax, which is currently being levied on diesel fuel, but on non-diesel fuel it is not. So if you levied that additional 9 cent, we'd have an additional 100 million to be looking for to put on projects. So overall, that last bullet, we have about 1.5 to 2.6 billion dollars of untapped potential new revenue from these sources alone. So getting into the cost feasible plan, we wanted to kind of outline the different funding programs or the different pots of money that we're going to be allocating for our cost feasible plan. So the first one is pretty simple. We're going to utilize those state and local funding sources for capacity, roadway, and intersection projects. So these are your widening projects, your intersection jobs, different things of that kind of true capacity nature. Then what we're going to do is we're going to set aside what we call boxed funds for other specific project types. And really this is going to target the corridors from the bike ped master plan. So allocating funds to go and put sidewalks, trails, and bike facilities on those corridors that were identified. We're also going to prioritize those ITS improvements and those projects coming out of the ITS master plan. Transit O&M has been a need that we've discussed with Space Coast Area Transit throughout this process, and so setting aside a boxed fund for them to support additional O&M on their system. And then study implementation projects. So we've done a whole bunch of studies, both from the DOT side and the Space Coast TPO side in Brevard County. And so we want to make sure that we get those projects moving forward. They don't just sit on the shelf for 10 years. Then the last one that we're going to set aside box funds is safety projects. And so safety is a big need, both from a ped bike perspective and an overall vehicular perspective. We did a bunch of RSAs. We did about 10 RSAs a couple years back. And so we want to implement the findings from those studies and keep improving safety and also tying in with the Vision Zero effort that we got going on right now. So how we're going to actually set up our cost feasible plan. So as I mentioned, we have those different kind of funding programs, those different pots that we're going to be allocating funding to. But we're going to run a couple different scenarios with those pots. And so the first scenario is going to be kind of your true cost feasible, or not your true, kind of your standard cost feasible plan, one that's been presented in previous years. And that's going to allocate a majority of our funding for our high priority capacity roadway and intersection projects, and then allocate the remainder to our boxed funds. And so that would be using what we're starting with as a base is the boxed funds kind of percentage from the previous LRTP, relatively low percentage of our funds overall. And then what we're going to do is we're going to flip that. And so scenario 2 is going to be where we allocate most of our funding towards our boxed funds. And so we're going to place a higher emphasis on the safety, the multimodal aspects of the system, and which in turn means that fewer capacity and intersection projects would be funded. And then the third scenario is going to be if we came through and utilized new funding sources, what additional projects could we fund that may not have been funded or for cost feasible in scenarios 1 and 2. And so that's going to be the third scenario that we look at.
Thank you, Travis. And so that's kind of the approach that we're taking right now. Again, just to summarize everything. We're really going to use that technical process for the project priorities as our initial screening. And then we're going to go through and do those financial exercises in the scenarios that Travis mentioned. And so our next step, we're going to continue working through the month to get a draft cost feasible plan together for the technical committee to review by the end of the month in early June. And then we will have a draft cost feasible posted by June 17th for public comment. And that coincides with our open house date. Hopefully we'll be able to have an in-person open house, or it might be in a format similar to this. And then in July, we'll be presenting our draft cost feasible plan to the board and committees. And we will then start working on our local agency implementation guides. I mentioned this before in previous presentations. That will give our local agencies some homework to do from the adoption of this plan to continue through the next plan. And then in September, we have to present the full 2045 long-range plan to the board for adoption. And with that, I'll take any questions, but first we have a Menti poll. We just want to make sure we're on the right track. And so it looks like we're looking from everybody. Does this approach sound like it makes sense to everyone? Please vote yes or no. If you vote no, please contact me so we can get on the same page, but we just want to make sure we're heading in the right direction. So when we come back and present a draft to everyone, we don't want everyone to say, hey, where did all of this stuff come from? So
while people are voting, we do have one question from Tony Sasso. What are boxed funds?
So because there are, so we have the different boxed funds categories. Because there's so many projects associated with each one of those areas, the bike ped master plan, the ITS master plan, safety projects, all of that, it would be a very, very, very cumbersome exercise to go through and try to cost out every single one of those projects. And then they're all at various states of readiness. So for long range plan purposes, we set those funds aside. And so, for example, it could be $6 million for each 5-year time period. You know, from 2030 to 2035, there could be $6 million for ITS in each 5-year time band. So that's how the box funds would work for all of those different programs. And so in those different scenarios, we'd be looking at applying different percentages of our overall revenue forecast to the boxes. Any other questions?
He said, okay, thanks.
All right.
Stephen, I've got a question for you. I mean, obviously, when this financial forecasting was done, the economic impact of this current pandemic wasn't in the picture. Okay, now the short-term effects of this are probably foreseeable to a certain extent. The long-term effects, nobody can really know. Mm-hmm. But have you had any discussions about that economic impact of this?
Not yet, other than the fact that we all know that it's definitely going to have one. But unfortunately, this is one of the pitfalls of long-range planning. You have to use your best available data at the time to make the best decisions moving forward. And something similar happened back in 2008, you know, with the housing market and the bubble and everything. And so, if anything, it might just in our next long range plan, you might hear a lot of the exact same things from me because it might just cause a delay if there is a big financial implication from all of this. It could just delay everything a little bit longer.
I have another question on a similar guidelines. That's from David Carter. How does societal changes with COVID affect the revenue forecast of the plan, cruise, air travel, driving?
That is a very good question, and I believe there's a lot of people a lot smarter than me currently taking a look at that, and we are going to be taking, keeping our eyes and ears open to see what those reports and what the ramifications will be, so we can make any needed adjustments on our end.
And I think, you know, I think what we know from a short-term perspective is that, you know, we were already struggling with revenue forecasts due to, you know, the gas tax and the cost of materials and so on. And so this is almost like a punch in the gut for the projects that are already in the work program and projects that we want to keep moving through the pipeline. But from a long-term perspective, yes, like Stephen says, there's just a lot we don't know what the impact is going to be at this time.
And congestion's improved a little bit. It's not as congested.
All right, other questions for Stephen or Travis? Raise your hand.
Not receiving any.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we look forward to our meetings in July and September to see where that long-range transportation plan study takes us. So that takes us to item 8C, the 2019 student school
One more.
travel.
Mr. Sasso apparently has a question.
Oh, sorry, let's go back to
Yeah, Mr.
the
Sasso,
LRTP.
you're unmuted.
Sorry, Steve, I had my hand raised. I guess you guys didn't catch it. And actually, that's a great segue into my question. I know you're getting ready to do a public meeting in not much more than a month from now. And I'm really concerned that with the situation we're in now, whether it's public or not, or both, I hope that we're doing everything we can so that everybody at whatever level of health or whatever level of technology is going to be able to participate that wants to. And this format, while we've all kind of figured it out, I know a lot of people are doing Zoom and other things. This is like the first time trying to figure it out. And just like just now, missing my question, somebody might not get their input. So I'm just asking to please make sure we give the public as much leeway and as many options as possible at all levels of technology and accessibility.
Absolutely, that's a great point, and we are working through and figuring some things out as we go. We do have a physical location that people can be at right now, over in front of our building, Building B, where they can watch outside. We actually have a speaker outside so they can participate, and Carol is inside and can let them in to let them speak if need be. But we don't have anyone over there today, but we will definitely be doing similar things like that and refining things as we go and see best practices from other people's meetings as well. And Georgiana's been talking with all of the directors regularly statewide to hear what all of the other TPOs are doing, because they are in a very similar situation that we are in, because many of them are working on updating their long-range plans as well.
Great. Thanks, Steve. I knew you were. I just wanted to, had to ask.
And actually, we've actually been finding that we're getting much more participation than we usually would, just due to the fact that people don't actually have to come and see me in person, I guess.
Maybe folks have a little more free time on their hands. All right. Thanks, Steve. Thank you all.
All right, any other hands?
Yeah, Mr. Fuskis, efficiency, he put in the question box, efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things. Peter Drucker, we need to address the alternatives to raising funds. Mr. Fuskis, I'll unmute you in case there's something else that you wanted to add. You are currently unmuted if you wanted to, say something or follow up with what you wrote.
Yeah, my comment was that efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things. I think that your presentation is excellent in its organization, but there are other alternatives to raising the funds and the resources in order to accomplish our objectives. And that, of course, is something that I would welcome getting together with you and discussing.
That sounds great. We can set up a time for that. I believe Laura and Sarah are setting up a time to meet with you, and so I can be a part of that as well if you'd like.
That would be very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, other hands? Right, okay, thank you. So that takes us to the student school travel survey.
All right. Good morning, everybody. This is Kim Smith with the TPO, and I'm here to talk to you about how our students get to school in a non-COVID time. Right now, obviously, they're enjoying those short commutes as well, just like many of us on. So you've got a question up there. First question to get us into this presentation is, what percentage of students in Brevard County do you think walk to school?
I currently have 43 attendees.
This was about the same number.
Okay, we're just gonna give this, okay, we're going to go ahead and switch to the next one. We got another question up. The first question was about walking to school. Now we're asking you the same question about percentage of Brevard County students that bike to school. All right, so you will get the answers to these questions. I'm not going to just tell them to you. I'm going to make you pay attention to my presentation. So you will get the answers to those questions. Obviously, the traffic in and around schools has an effect on our overall traffic congestion when we're operating in normal times. So we have been, okay. So the TPO has actually been collecting student travel data since the year 2000. So we have 20 years of data, and we've had it on hand. We really haven't done a whole lot with it. We have used it from time to time, but recently Chelsea on staff with us has gone through it, and she's really kind of dissected it, torn it apart in a good way, and given us some interesting information that we're going to take a real high level look at here in just a few slides. We conduct a survey every other year. We collect it all on the same day throughout the entire county, so everybody should have similar weather conditions. That doesn't always hold true. You know, we have a 72-mile long county, so sometimes we can have real severe weather in one end and not in the other, but we do conduct this on a light, what is as best we can on a light day weather-wise. In 2012, we actually started collecting how the students are getting home, and you will see as we go through this that there is a difference, and in some of the areas, quite a bit of percentage difference. And this, up to now, this information has been used primarily for Safe Routes to School projects. It's information that's required when those grants are turned in. All right, so if you just take a look at how the kids are getting to school, students are getting to school, you can by far see that the #1 mode, and I mean, we probably didn't even have to look at this slide. We all drive in the morning around the schools and see the congestion, but the personal vehicle cars are the #1 way that they're getting to school. Then if you break it down by types of school, you'll see the percentages there of how many at each level are getting to school by personal vehicle. Then we go into school buses, and this one, of course, is broken down by the types of schools and how they're getting to school. You see in some of those areas, the numbers, there's some reasons, like magnet schools has a real low percentage of their students, but a lot of those schools are choice schools where they have to drive to get them. So when we look into bicycling, you can see, and this is it's around 5% and at your elementary and middle schools, which is about the national average. So we're right on par there. And then walking, of course, is a little higher. This is where I like to point out, though, if you look at elementary and middle, there's really quite a bit of difference on in the morning. The kids are there. There's a lot less of them that walk. There's more of them that walk home in the afternoon. So we do have to look at numbers like that, and it helps us understand what the travel patterns will be at a certain time of day. And of course, that comes from parents. They'll just drop them off and then let them walk home in the afternoon as they're headed off. All right, so as an average, we had 88% of our students report that they wear their seatbelt. The other number is one that makes me see red every time I see it. And that is, as of our last survey in 2019, we only have 48% of our students reporting to us that they're wearing their bicycle helmets. So we're not real happy with that, but there is a little bit of good news on I think maybe the next slide. Oh, no, we gotta wait a couple slides for the really good news. But here you see it as you break down the helmet usage. Of course, elementary school has a higher use and the older they get, of course, they know more and they know better. So they stop wearing the helmet because they think they're immune to those head injuries. And you can see too here that we've seen a steady drop in helmet usage. For those of you that don't know the history of the Florida State helmet law, it actually did come into effect in 1999, just before we started taking this data. So of course, you put a new law in place, you do get a degree of compliance just because the law is there. But you can see we've had a steady drop off. There's a lot of reasons for this, but part of it, of course, is enforcement of this law. This is a big issue we have, and why I think primarily this number has dropped so drastically. This is the good news that I was wanting to get to. If you look at our schools, we went back in and we looked at the schools where we traditionally do our program, where our bike trailers go, and the schools that we work with on a regular basis. And of course, this is voluntary. We can't force schools to participate, but the ones that are participating on a regular basis. And you can see that the helmet usage in those schools is 30% higher. And for us, that's good news. But it also tells us that we need to take that program and we need to get it in some of those other schools, because I think if you not only look at the helmet usage, but I think that the level of bike safety knowledge and pedestrian safety knowledge, I think you would find would also be greater in these schools. But it is nice to see that our education program is having a positive effect. All right, so what are we going to do with this now that we've done a lot of analysis of it? And this is really just a really high level of the analysis that Chelsea did on this. It's going to give us a roadmap of, like I just mentioned, of how we can go in and use the resources we have to put them in, maybe in different places, allocate them better, know what we might need to do in some areas to improve the numbers overall, get our averages up. There's helmets available to us, so there's no reason that we have a 48% compliance with the law. We've been able to get a lot of helmets, so there's ways to get those numbers up. And like I mentioned, it also shows that our education program is having an effect on the knowledge of our students. So we want to look for those schools that traditionally have not participated and see if we can maybe nudge them into participating in the education programs that we offer. And this, we are actually going to take the data that has been crunched, and there's a lot of it, and it breaks all the way down to actually the classroom level that we could get and provide to you. But it's going to go on our website, and you'll be able to get in there and look at it and dissect it and get a lot more information than what I presented to you today. And of course, if there's something in particular that you're looking for, we'll be more than happy to help you look that up and get to it. This is not available quite yet, but it's planned to be up and available here before too long.
We do have a question. How does the bicycle, this is from Daniel Spradling, how does the bicycle helmet usage map against the same for motorcycle riders?
That's not something that we track and obviously wouldn't be tracked in here. And in fact, the way we do our data and our collection, if we had high school students that were using motorcycles, they would just report in that they basically were a car. So we don't break it down to as helmet usage. So helmet usage in Brevard County is not something for motorcycles that we've ever tracked.
Other questions? You can raise your hand, please. All right, thank you very much. That takes us to item 8D, which is to recognize some of our members who are loyally attend, whether in person or remotely. So Georgiana, I'll turn that over to you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Annually, the TPO Governing Board recognizes members who have maintained an 85% or greater attendance record for the previous 4 years and shall receive resolutions for their service. And members are also recognized for perfect attendance. So for perfect attendance for 2019, for the Technical Advisory Committee, we have Michael Jeruzowitz from the City of Rockledge, Terry Jordan from Space Coast Area Transit, Veronica Neves Lugo from the Port Authority. And for the Citizens Advisory Committee, we have Arlen DeBlois from the North Beaches Coalition, Peter Fuskus, District 3, Daniel Spradling, City of Melbourne, and Philip Weinberg from the City of Palm Bay. And we also have resolutions for the members achieving 85% or greater attendance record over the past 4 years. And we have a resolution that goes to Pete Pettick and Philip Weinberg. So we thank you so very much for your service. You know, the technical and citizens advisory committees, you are all such an important part of the MPO process, and you show up, you're engaged. Of course, not everyone can make every meeting except for a few of you, but making sure that you have an alternate or someone sitting in is always important. So, you know, having a local voice at the table, that is what MPOs, that's what this is about. And so we appreciate you so very much. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we appreciate the board recognizing the TPO and CAC members who loyally participate in. And I noted that each of those members are major contributors, not just showing up, but significantly contribute to the success of the Space Coast TPO. So thank you to all those for your loyalty, but also for your contributions. So that moves us to item 9, reports, and our first one is from the Florida Department of Transportation.
She's self-muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. This is Anna again from the Florida Department of Transportation. We have the construction report in your package that was provided to you all. And I just wanted to highlight that our Director of Development, Lorene Bobo, presented to the board back in February some of the planned improvements, safety improvements for A1A. And I'm happy to report that all of those improvements were installed last Friday, May the 1st, and the speed limit has also been lowered.
All right, I had one question, and there may be some questions on that project, but I have noted that the I-95 interchange at Ellis is wonderfully way ahead of schedule and looking like it's getting very close. So I didn't know if there was any plans for any kind of ceremonial marking of that interchange, but it's a major undertaking, and the Department of Transportation and your consultants and the construction contractor have all done tremendous work, and it's turning out just to be a beautiful project. even though it wasn't an easy one. And so if we can find out if there's an opportunity to participate, I know that Cliff and Melbourne Airport, City of Melbourne, others have been promoting this for a great number of years. And so I think something ceremonial would be appropriate, and would ask if the proper people at the Department of Transportation could reach out locally, perhaps through the TPO, and see that there can't be some recognition of the state for such a great project. And, you know, finishing a year ahead of schedule is just tremendous. So we just wanted to celebrate a little bit. We always look forward to the next thing, but sometimes we forget to celebrate it. And that one's one very much worth celebrating. So I would ask for the department to reach out to Georgiana and the TPO to try to plan something celebratory for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a few months back, our management was looking at some of the ribbon cuttings and some opportunities for ribbon cuttings. And I think that was one that was on the list to be vetted. So I can check back with management and see kind of where we are on that. And I'd be happy to get Georgiana a status report.
Sounds good.
Thank you. And I'm sure there's going to be some that may want to comment on the A1A. So do we see some hands?
Yes, we have Cliff Graham.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I wanted to comment on the Ellis Road I-95, the interchange, and I second Scott's comments. Absolutely. What a tremendous example of a successful project and what it's going to mean to the region. I've been attending the weekly construction meetings, you know, like every other meeting, every third meeting. I was there yesterday, and they were talking a lot about the opening of the road, opening of the interchange, and as early as the 15th of this month. So that's 7 days from now, if everybody could believe that. You know, there's a couple inspections that need to happen and a little bit more work, but they're looking at possibly opening this thing up next Friday. Just like you mentioned today, you know, we inquired about, wanted to inquire about any kind of ribbon cutting ceremony. Haven't heard anything as of yet, but obviously, as you mentioned, Scott, there is a lot of interest in the community, and you know, there's so many of us that would like to be part of something like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Cliff.
Mr. Sasso?
Yeah, hi, Anna, this is Tony Sasso in asking about Cocoa Beach crosswalks. And I see that on the A1A, some of the requested crosswalks, specifically downtown First Avenue north, I'm not sure about south because I haven't been out in a while, but I see that they're installed. I've got a couple of questions. One, are they functioning now, number one? And number two, how are they affected by the new state law? And three, what's the schedule for the others midway in Cocoa Beach on A1A? And that would be, when I say midway, I mean further north.
I don't have that information on hand, but I can absolutely get that back to you. And then in regards to the state law, are you speaking about Representative Fine's bill?
Yes.
That one did pass the House, but it did not make it out of the Senate. So at this time, that bill did not move forward, and it will not go to the governor's desk.
Right, and I guess my question is, you know, I don't know for certain it's coming back or not. I guess my question is are we still gonna, knowing that there is some push by the legislature to try and do that? As we know, oftentimes bills take 2 or 3 years to get passed. And I don't know if Mr. Fine's going to keep pursuing it or not, but if he does, how is FDOT going to respond to that? Are we still going to keep moving forward and trying to get these crosswalks that a lot of the folks in the community are asking for?
So at this time, FDOT is having to abide by what is in the current manual because that is a national standard. So we try to keep the yellow light consistency nationwide. So we do abide by that. I know FDOT is actively working with the legislature and trying to see how we move forward. And I know the conversation is still alive and trying to find out if, we set a new standard for the types of facilities that these would be placed on.
Okay, and then if I could just end with, and I want to just say, first of all, thank you, because I know through Georgiana and Sarah and everybody at the TPO, as well as DOT, working very closely with the individual cities to kind of fine tune those, not necessarily the functional design of them, but to kind of allow a little bit of gray area on what the vehicle approach is going to be. So folks will, signage and different things to kind of warn traffic. And the only other thing I'm going to add is to whether DOT can do it or not, to look the other way with signage for pedestrians to wait for traffic to stop. Because right now you don't allow that on your signpost, and those are so needed. So if y'all allow
part of the improvements that we just installed on A1A is a brand new sign. So when you walk up to the pedestrian actually walks up to press the button, that we have added a line at the bottom that does say, please wait for traffic to stop. I'm not sure if that's what you're alluding to, but that is a brand new sign that has been placed.
Awesome. God bless you. Thank you. That's I think that's going to make a big difference for folks. So thank you for that. That's all I have.
They've been installed on where every button is on all 16 of the RRFBs within the corridor.
Okay, great. And if you could just get back to me with what's going on with the rest of them, either you or Georgianne or whoever, on updating what's going on with the rest of the crosswalks in Cocoa Beach. I think they were scheduled for the next year. It was either 2021 or 2022, I think.
Yes, sir, we can look into that.
Yeah, Tony, this is Georgiana. Sarah just looked it up, and the letting for those crosswalks is August of 2021. We attended a meeting with the city of Cocoa Beach as well as the DOT project manager several months back. So they're still on schedule, and so that'll be very good for the Cocoa Beach folks. I know they're very anxious for those activated.
Great, and I apologize for being a little bit out of the loop, but please, if you would, keep me in that loop as much as you can. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We have another hand raised by Orson Tarver. You're unmuted.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So hi, Ann Taylor. I'm the Cocoa Beach Beachside Communities Coalition member. I'm brand new to this. This is my first meeting, so my questions may seem a little basic. It's related to these potential planned crosswalks that Tony earlier alluded to. What I'm trying to wrap my mind around is these crosswalks, since they're not integrated into the overall traffic control system of A1A, has FDOT studied how this will impact congestion, since these lights, of course, are ad hoc and not part of the overall flow control? Like what degradation of service, if any, we will have or might experience? And is there ways to mitigate that by integrating these systems into the overall traffic flow system so that we have a more, I guess, structured system to deal with the traffic coming through? And then finally, I'd appreciate it if you could email me the locations of the planned crosswalks so I can discuss it with the city commission. As I said, I am coming up to speed here, so maybe this is already, I'm sure this has already been discussed at a previous time. I'm just simply not aware.
I'm gonna have to look into some of that for you. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not super well versed on this project that you guys are questioning about, but I can tell you that if we have a letting date of next year, then traffic ops would have already done their study. They would have recommended them. They do take into account several things in their study. One of them is traffic signals within the proximity of the location. They also look at existing driveways that may come in conflict with the pedestrian facility. So I can assure you that if we are moving forward with the project, that it has been very well vetted by our safety office and our traffic operations unit. But I can get back in touch on some of those more fine-tuned details for you, and I'd be happy to send both you and Georgiana an email.
Okay, thank you so much.
Great. Any other hands?
Not seeing any.
All right, then we'll move on to the next item, 9B. Terry, the transit report, please.
Good morning, everyone. It's Terry Jordan, Space Coast Area Transit Planner. I'm going to share some quick and brief information and update on how Space Coast Area Transit has been operating since the onset of the COVID-19 virus. With transit vehicle operators and mechanics being defined as essential workers by the Department of Homeland Security, Space Coast Area Transit continues to provide services to our patrons in the understanding that in many cases, we're the only source of transportation to destinations considered essential, such as work, medical appointments, dialysis, and food shopping, things of that nature. At the present time, we've suspended our contract routes to locations such as adult care, day training centers, and senior service centers and meal sites, mainly because many of them are closed at this point. Our door-to-door demand response service is limited to essential, medical, and work trips only. Due to the limited manpower of our fixed route services operate on a modified Saturday schedule with some extended hours to the beach side, things of that nature. We've also encouraged trips on the fixed route service to be for essential purposes as well. Our current daily average ridership is roughly around 3,200 riders. This is up from about 2,700 only a week ago. So with the reopenings, we've seen a very quick rebound. However, that's still about 50% of our normal average ridership. Space Coast Air Transit continues to work with all of our employees to implement protective measures such as installing protective masks, gloves, disinfectant spray, hand sanitizer, and all of these bus operators, along with daily temperature checks before anyone actually accesses the building or starts work. And to minimize the contact between operators and passengers, we suspended our fares. So all of our passengers are now boarding from the rear of the bus and alighting from the rear of the bus. In addition to implementing the rear door boarding, which a lot of transit systems have done throughout the nation, we've also sectioned off the front portion of the buses. So once again, there's a limited contact, so patrons don't get to go to the front of the bus, and that reduces the person-to-person contact with the operators. And we've also started ordering plexiglass, like you see in your local grocery stores and things of that nature. We're customizing them and they're being installed right around the driver's area. So even after we start back operating as close to normal as possible, we'll still have that barrier to ensure the safety of our operators as much as possible. We've also taken additional steps to ensure social distancing on the buses by reducing the number of riders allowed on the bus at any one point to prevent crowding. And on routes where we anticipate that there's going to be higher ridership, we've added a follow-up bus. So you may be going down the street and see two buses traveling directly behind each other. And what it's doing is when the first bus gets around 10 passengers or more to limit the space between the passengers, the second bus then starts to pick up what we would consider overflow, if at all necessary. And if we find that a route is actually getting to that point and doesn't have a follower, the operator can contact dispatch and another vehicle is dispatched out to catch up and then pick up the slack. Space Coast Secure Transit continues to do its comprehensive disinfecting efforts nightly on each of our vehicles. We've also ordered and are still waiting on disinfectant foggers. It's a solution that can be used to disinfect all the buses completely, as you might have seen on aircrafts and things of that nature. Just because of the demand, we haven't received a shipment yet, but that's something that's going to be utilized, and we expect that it's going to be very helpful in killing any of the airborne viruses and things of that nature. Of course, the health and safety of Space Coast Area Transit employees and customers continues to be among the top priorities, along with providing safe and reliable service to our Brevard County residents. However, we do recognize and understand that the numbers do play a big role of this. So the more you're exposed to people, individuals out in public, the higher opportunity to contract this virus. So I wanted to take this opportunity to say a special thank you to all of our men and women that are going out each day to provide these absolutely and essential services that they're doing each day they head out to work. And that's it from Space Coast Area Transit.
Thank you, Terry. We have any questions for Terry?
There is one question from Mr. Sasso. Who was the North Beaches point? Oh, we can answer this separately. It's not related. Are there any hands?
Okay.
I don't see any hands.
There's no hands.
Thank you for that great report, Terry.
You're
That
welcome.
takes us to item 9C, the public engagement. So as Abby is getting ready to present, we again want to say congratulations for her 2 awards from the Space Coast chapter of FBRA. Well earned, we think. We, as an organization, we think Abby does a great job in engaging the public in so many different ways. And so we congratulate you as you prepare to tell us the status of your public engagement efforts.
Thank you so much. I'm Abby Head, I'm the Public Involvement Officer for the Space Coast TPO, and today I'm going to be reviewing our quarterly reports. We kind of have to turn our brains back a little bit pre-pandemic. This report is going to cover our efforts January through March of this year. And so what I'd first like to talk about is the public information that we promoted on our social media channels and out through our communications efforts. So.
We've lost her.
There you go. Some of the big things that we've been promoting are the 2020 census, the LRTP Phase 2 survey, which discussed needs and prioritization of those needs. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then another big thing that we promoted was Operation Vision Zero, which was a campaign that was put out through Alert Today, Alive Tomorrow, part of FDOT, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to news features. So this just shows you some visuals of what we were promoting. And then go ahead, you can go to the next one, thank you. And then we were very blessed that we were able to squeeze in some events and education, before we went on lockdown. So some of the big ones were Kim held a Vision Zero Task Force Action Plan workshop where they really got down to the nitty gritty of data and got into brainstorming groups. She also led a Safe Mobility for Life workshop training in partnership with some of our community agencies. And we also had some speaking engagements and some other community education events as well. One that we promoted a lot was our community chat in Satellite Beach, which was attended by some students. So that was great. You can go to the next slide. And then these are our social media stats, 2 that I kind of want to point out. We always recap these stats, but I like to give a little bit of background information. First, the Facebook reach is very high, and there's a reason for that. During this time period from January through March, we were promoting our LRTP survey, which was asking public citizens and residents to rank their needs, safety, environment, what they care the most about. And we used our consultant, our sub-consultant through Kittleson, which is Val Stern, our communications consultant, and they put boosted funds on some of our social media posts so that we could reach a larger audience, which is really important. Some demographics don't come to public meetings. younger generations want to do everything online, although maybe this now will switch things up a little bit now that people are getting used to doing other meetings and surveys online during this time frame. So I wanted to give a little bit of background information about why that number is pretty high. And then also Nextdoor is decently high, that we reached over 40,000 people through Nextdoor. And that's because we were promoting our LRTP public meetings that were in coordination with the survey. So we got some great engagement during January and February and a little bit in March before we went into lockdown here. You can go to the next slide. And then this is our last slide here. This just reviews the news features that we had, the newsletters, which now we only put out a monthly newsletter to make it a little bit more meatier, and it has some good information in there. Our press releases and things that we create in-house. So we are really trying to utilize software and programs to make our own graphics, flyers, publications, and really trying to build our brand as the TPO. One thing I wanted to point out on this slide was in our news features, we had a lot of different ones happening, some in conjunction with things that were happening on A1A, but we have a lot of news features come out of our Operation Vision Zero campaign. We partnered with Alert Today, Live Tomorrow, and FDOT and held a press conference at the BCSO headquarters in Merritt Island, and we had a lot of media come. Next to Orlando, we were the ones that had the most media there, so we're really proud of that effort. I'm really proud of our relationships that we have with our local media agencies, not only our print ones, but broadcasts and also any web-based news agencies as well. So just wanted to point that out and give a shout out to those news agencies. And that's all I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, raise your hand if you have questions for Abby.
Seeing none.
Seeing none, thank you, Abby. That takes us to item 9D, local government report. So raise your hand if you want to provide a report, and we will unmute you.
Like there are no reports.
No reports. How about the CHC? Any reports? Any final comments?
Mr. Sasser.
Yeah, hi all. I just want to say thank you. I miss seeing everybody's face. I appreciate doing it this way. I hope it worked well, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see each other soon.
Thank you, Tony.
We have another hand raised by Mr. Orson Tarver. Mr. Tarver?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Just want to share an observation that occurred earlier this week, heading south on A1A through Satellite Beach. Observed the new pedestrian crossing things in the road and on the left and right hand side. I just want to make a mention that I observed this firsthand. The little sign thing on the right hand side is actually partially in the bike lane, and I watched a bicyclist come up to it, hesitate, and swerve into the car lane to go around on the left side of the sign instead of the right. Fortunately, I personally was able to slow down quick enough, but I thought it raised a serious safety issue because we seem to be obstructing a bike lane with a sign, forcing a bicyclist to make a decision to go left or right. And if they go to the left, if the vehicle is not able to slow down or stop quickly enough to avoid a collision, they have to swerve left, and they're going to run over the sign that's in the center of the road, which is a dangerous situation in itself. So I don't know if any other members have observed this behavior by bicyclists. Maybe this is just a completely one-off situation, but I at least wanted to raise this to the group to maybe keep an eye out. And if this continues to occur, maybe we need to look at how that sign is positioned and make it and adjust it so that the bicyclists have enough room to safely continue to travel in their bicycle lane. Thank you.
Mr. Tarver, I don't know if Anna's still on the line, but the department is aware of it. You can unmute her. Anna may be able to give us some information on that.
I'm not seeing her.
Okay. I don't think Anna is on the line, but the DOT is aware of it. I appreciate you letting me know that. I think yesterday when I spoke with you, And they are working to get that addressed, and they're monitoring it. So thank you for that very much.
Any other hands?
Not at this time.
I just wanted to extend appreciation to all the municipalities in the county and the county government itself. These are difficult times, but I think everybody's doing really well, and not just on the transportation area, but in so many other areas. So continued best wishes to all of you that work for cities or the county and all the citizen volunteers. Really appreciate everything that everybody's doing to try to address the health and economic concerns from the COVID-19 pandemic. So unless there's any further questions from CAC or TAC hand raising.
We would like to, before we adjourn, allow them the opportunity to provide some feedback on our go-to methodology and Menti. So if you would allow it.
Sure, okay. If you stay on the line a little bit, if you want to provide some feedback on how that went, I'm sure the staff would be happy to take that into consideration in the event we need to do this again in July.
Yeah, so if we can, if he will provide us feedback, we will be able to take feedback and able to hopefully tweak and make it better. I know we've had several questions and comments already come in today where we've been making notes and ways to improve, but we'd love to hear from you. So our first question is, well, I believe we have 4 questions. The first one is, on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rank the virtual format overall? So if you think we did pretty good, maybe it's a 4. If you think we did awesome, a 5. Hopefully no ones. But if that's the way you feel, we will try.
Check your Wi-Fi at home if you're giving us a 0.
We should have some comparison to others.
All right. I know we've lost several people, so that's probably about it. But on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rank the virtual voting process? Once we got it ironed out. Let's skip the first one.
And for the TPO board, the actual roll call might be better.
Yeah, using the hand.
Yeah.
Right. On a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable did you feel providing input via the virtual format? So how comfortable were you providing questions or input, discussion? Tony has his hand raised via the question box. Tony, I unmuted you. It says you're self-muted.
Sorry, yeah. I'm an engineer. I'm not the most techie guy, but I'm pretty good at this stuff. But I had asked the question earlier, what percentage of our attendees were able to get in and do those surveys? Because I'm not afraid to click on stuff and try to find stuff. I couldn't figure out the Menti thing to save my life. I used my phone, I used my computer, I'm on a Mac. I mean, I can't figure out how to do the survey. So the menti.com with the code and all that, I just couldn't get anything to work. So I don't know if anybody else was having that problem, but on your survey, you can put me down that part of it sucks. Everything else was great.
Hey, so how about with Judy's? Did you have was that any easier for you to use? Because we are looking at different platforms and evaluating them.
I couldn't get on any of the survey type platforms. Okay. I tried, I clicked on it. It may have shown up in your count, but it didn't tell me it was showing up or not. I didn't see any changes. like on some of the scales on the survey percentages, I just saw saw them sliding up and down, and I couldn't tell if it was me or other people or what was going on. So it was pretty confusing, and I'm imagining that for other folks who maybe aren't as technical, it's probably not working for them. And I've been on Zoom and Lifeline or whatever it is, like 4 or 5 different platforms doing this, and honestly, none of them have any kind of survey type platform. But the other thing I would just say is, and I don't know how you can do it, but it's really nice to see everybody's face. And that's part of what we weren't able to do on this. And I know it's harder on some of those platforms when you've got more than 30 people, but we've done virtual meetings with up to 30 people on Zoom, for example, and the facilitator mutes everybody and controls, and we can vote with our thumbs up and down, and you can see everybody, and you feel like you're participating more. Just my 2 cents. This wasn't bad, but it wasn't great.
Thank you for that, Tony.
Thanks for holding back, Tony.
Mr. Tarver has his hand raised. Mr. Tarver, you're unmuted.
I just want to say, thank you. No, I just want to say I really appreciate this format. As someone who works full time, I actually took PTO for half the day to attend this meeting. And what's great is that since I am doing this from home, as soon as we're done with this meeting, I can get back to work. And this really saves on, of course, naturally travel time and things like that. So I hope that you guys even after COVID is up, it would be nice if you continued this. So for folks who simply, it's challenging to get into wherever the office meeting location is, it'd make it much easier, at least for my life, if I could at times participate remotely when I simply could not drive to the designated meeting area. So, but thank you very much. I think it went really well.
Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback, and we will work on ironing out all the kinks.
All right, and we do not have a June meeting, so our next meeting is in July. So stay tuned as to how that meeting would be conducted. But if there are no other questions or comments or information to share, hands raised. Seeing none, we will adjourn at 11:43.
Thanks, Scott. Good job.